So I had some thoughts I wanted to share that I feel are pretty applicable to everybody. And it's in regards to those things in which we hate, but we know we need them. So the first thing that came to mind is most of us do not like regulation. We don't like structure. However, if we look at the different successful people, whether it's in the music industry, whether it's in the sports industry, if they're actors or actresses, there is a lot of structure that they have in order to meet their goals, their targets, and so forth. And so I wanted to just kind of make it just more understandable that in order to get anything in life, there has to be some type of system in place that helps you get to your goal. So if you are a chef and you want to become a better chef, you have to read more and regularly, and then you have to cook more regularly. And anything in life in which is worth having, there has to be some type of plan of action. And that plan of action requires a system, requires a regulation, guidelines, rules. I know it's a yucky word, rules, but in all reality, it's a necessary process. So this is my thought, my experience that I wanted to show or share with you all, especially because I have an insurance agency myself, and there's a lot of regulation and guidelines and rules I have to follow in order to be successful in my field. So I'm relatively successful in what I do. So I thought maybe I could share a little bit about my process and process of other successful people. And hopefully that may land on open ears. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. I want to start this video with a disclaimer. I am not trying to hurt your feelings or slander your religion or disregard your belief system. However, what I do want to share are points that are pretty consistent as to why certain religions either struggle, fail, or succeed. So when I was researching for this video, I came across a gentleman by the name of Dr. Rodney Starks. And so Dr. Starks embarked on a journey of studying the different religions, Catholicism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islamic, Buddhism, these different cultures, these different religions, and he was able to isolate 10 things that were absolutely necessary in order to develop or in order to maintain a healthy community or a healthy institution. I took those 10, brought them down to 8 elements to make them a little easier. And I'm going to share those 8 with you as quickly as possible. And I hope that it makes sense. This video is for 2 types of people: the leaders of these different communities and those on the sidelines wondering why everything's in kind of disarray, why there's such a disaster it seems like religions are in right now. And so the first element of the 8 is cultural continuity. So what does that mean? That means that there has to be easy assimilation in someone's culture. So if, for example, if I am in North America. So in North America, we call this ball of light up there the sun. And in South America, in some parts, they call the same ball of light El Sol. Now, mind you, if you have zero understanding of Spanish, you don't know what I just said. But trust me, it means the sun. So we take that to religion. If we are using a name that is foreign to a community, then they're not going to understand. And there's going to be a lot of hesitation. There's going to be a lot of reluctance going on because the wording is not being understood the same. So, for example, in Islam, Islamic people call God Allah. So, what does it mean? It means the greatest. So, if by definition, if you are a theist, then you can say that God is the greatest. And so, by definition, that name is in line. However, it's in a different language. Doesn't mean it's not right. Just means it's in a different language. So if you are a Islamic person in the Christian nation and you're trying to preach or you're trying to push information, whatever, you're going to have to use the wording that's in that particular nation. That way, it's easily understandable. That way, there's some correlation, and you have to come in a proper attire that's suitable for that place. Because if you're trying to share in a place that they're not used to this attire, they're going to look at you like, what is that? If they don't know. And so this is necessary. And if not, if we don't make these considerations, then we're going to look like aliens. And we're trying to say, hey, let me take you to our leader. This is, and this is why a lot of people kind of get turned off even in the beginning because the wording and the attire. So the second element is, and of course, Dr. Starks has a different way of putting these terms, but I made it accessible, easier for me to remember. So the second part is the scientific method. So most of us who've went to school know that in science they teach you there's 4 basic parts of the scientific method. It's the observation, there's your formula, then there's the testing, and then there's the conclusion. And the conclusion is supposed to match the observation or the hypothesis, whatever. And as theists, as leaders, we have to be able to explain this information in such a way where it is the formula matches the hypothesis. It gets the same result. Because there are individuals who are analytical, who are skeptical, who are scientific minded, that they want to see that this is logical, this makes sense, that this can be experimented, and the experimentation is in line with the hypothesis, or with the observation. So this has to be in line. And as leaders, we have to remember that. You got to do it, and explain it in such a way where it's seamless. It's a seamless thing. The third part is that there has to be, I know, regulation. Sounds limiting. Sounds restricting. Sounds yucky. I know it does, but it's necessary. Why? Because every athlete, every CEO, every person that has any high position, most people that have the high positions in society have had some form of discipline because they had to do certain things over and over again. They had to abstain from certain diets for a certain period of time. They had to shoot so many jump shots. They had to read so much in order to be really good at what they're good at today. So if you're a theist, then more than likely you want to get good at understanding like the goal of theology. And that requires you to understand. But it requires the leaders in these communities to be able to explain in such a way where it's not so oppressive. It shouldn't sound like you're taking someone's children or someone's limbs away. If it does sound like that, then you're not explaining it properly. Because as a business owner, the risk should be worth the reward. And so if you are explaining the risk in such a way where the reward's like, I don't really care about it, then you're not doing such a good job. And so you have to be mindful of that and explain it where it makes sense. So the fourth element is authoritative. The information has to be authoritative, and it should come from a competent leader, competent personality. So what does that mean? It means that a person should not just understand theoretical and practical understanding of scriptures, but also be able to relate to people and to support people. So the second part of the competent leader is being able to allow a person to help that person find their their niche, so to speak. Allow them to find what in the culture, what in the religion makes them feel comfortable, and gives them support and gives them the the space in which to thrive. Because if that is not there, then that person is not going to be there. That's just plain and simple. So that's element four. So the fifth element is, and I this we're in the pandemic season, so I know it's going to sound kind of bad, but has to be contagious, meaning that the information should be so potent that people are just like, wow, I want to share this. And you have a bunch of people sharing their realizations, and they're just, and the movement's growing. However, if you're the only one that is inspired, then it's an uphill battle, because no one is going to, not many people are going to join you if there's not more people that are inspired to share with others to get the dynamic message. So that's the fifth element that's necessary. The sixth part, or the sixth element, is that it has to be family friendly, or there has to be generational growth, or assimilation, I should say, meaning that a person should be able to see themselves doing it 10 years from now, training their children to do it 10 years from now, and it continues. Because if this doesn't happen, then after so many years, so many decades, then the religion stops, the community stops, because there's no continuation. But there has to be an environment so conducive, created by the leaders, by the philosophy, in which allows people to, like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to raise my family in this. Yeah, let's do it. And then that inspires their children and their children all the way down the line. So this is necessary. And the seventh element, it has to be philosophically progressive. Philosophically progressive means that it should be a person should be able to, no matter if they're young or old, be able to resonate with the information that's there. And the religion, the belief system, should be so concise that no matter what particular movement is going on, that belief system can adequately and competently address these hot topics, and not isolate or not humiliate certain people. Now, mind you, there's not going. People are sensitive nowadays, so there's going to be some people that are going to be offended no matter what. But the philosophy, the spiritual science, should be so concise that a person that is younger, who's very into fairness, very into being treated morally, should feel like, wow, this is a place for me to be. And a person that's older, who has a different mindset, because every 10 years the mindset is different, but they should also feel like, okay, this still makes sense, and I can still see why the younger counterparts, the younger followers, are maintaining their beliefs, because it makes sense to both the older and the younger generation. So this is the seventh element. The eighth element is, and this, I think that even if the other seven are not so well produced, or if they're just not manifested in their entirety yet, this eighth element is going to pretty much make up for a lot of the disconnect, or like the inability. and that is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is should be a hot topic for leaders, and it should be a hot topic for anybody that's on the sideline, because we have to learn how to talk to each other. We have to learn how to effectively communicate. We have to be able to correct misunderstandings in such a way where both parties come out feeling refreshed, or at least feeling heard, because no one wants to feel ignored. So as leaders, we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to create the space, and that causes that, and that is comes from emotional intelligence. And this is extremely necessary. As a leader, you have to study emotional intelligence and make sure that your community is, they know that they have someone that is in position that cares, that knows their person and wants to treat them like a person, and so forth. However, there's a A8 or 8.1, whatever you want to call it, like a subheading that really needs to be also implemented if possible, but it should be implemented, and that is, in the spiritual community, there has to be like some type of either volunteer or paid therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist, because every one of us, especially if we have gone through 2020, has had some type of difficulty. And not even just 2020, but most people's lives are rough. And prayer helps a lot. It's necessary, it's needed. And there are certain traumatic experiences and certain experiences that we've gone through that need to be ironed out, because it has to be that way. We can't go into something with problems thinking that we're going in and everything's going to be okay, because it doesn't work like that. So as a leader, try to either get someone on retainer, or just someone that wants to volunteer and help, that's competent, a competent psychiatrist, therapist, that has a track record of success, because spiritual life is like a hospital. Everyone's practically sick, and even the doctors, even the RNs, even the LPNs, even the CNAs, even the nurse practitioners, they get sick too. So there needs to be someone that helps the people even when they're sick, because there's a lot of people that are bringing these mindsets into religion, thinking everything's going to be solved by prayer, which it can. However, what helps even faster is therapy. So that is the 8 principles, the 8 elements that I wanted to share. Hopefully this has landed on receptive ears, receptive hearts, and hopefully I didn't offend you or belittle your belief system or your community. So those leaders, please take what I'm saying and test it out. Use the scientific method and see if it works. And those people that are on the sidelines, this is how you measure the success or the competency of a community, of a spiritual community, or of a religion. And it should start at 1. It actually should start at 2. Should be philosophically logical. Should make sense and observable. Anyway, thank you so much. Take care.